If you guys are currently doing anything under $100,000 a month on Amazon, I encourage you to watch this entire video and I hope you find it valuable. Welcome back to OneUp FBA. In this video, we're going to go over the top 6 specific ways I see individuals struggling to scale their Amazon wholesale business in 2025. Now, just here in my Discord alone in the past week or so, we can see one of my students, Wade, hitting $50,000 a month his second month actually selling wholesale on Amazon. St. Cat scaling up to doing full pallets. We have Henry receiving his first shipment. Dave scaling up to 400,000. Now, what do all of these sellers have in common and what are they doing differently that you might not be currently doing in your business? I can kind of break it down to 6 things. One is choosing the right supplier, either buying from a good brand or buying from a good distributor of that brand. Number 2, I want to talk about actual just volume, the overall volume and workload that this type of business actually takes to be successful. Number 3 is having a streamlined system of choosing good products for your business. And with that, I'm going to walk you guys through one of the ways I like to source product, which is called the hybrid sourcing method. Number 4 is actually understanding the data that comes through on a tool like Sellerboard. What does the profit margin and ROI actually mean? And are those indicators for products that we should either no longer carry in our business, continue to restock? How much do we restock? Or do we need to make any pricing adjustments or be more aggressive in terms of negotiating with our suppliers? The 5th thing we're going to dive into much later in the video here is, especially if you are a retail or online arbitrage seller looking to make that transition into wholesale, we're going to cover some realistic expectations and some ways we need to start thinking about the business a little differently to make that transition a lot easier. And number 6, we're just going to cover at the very end of the video why I truly believe to this day wholesale is one of the best business models and the most lucrative business models to start, scale, continue to cash flow with your Amazon business, even today in 2025. You are definitely gonna wanna stay all the way to the end. There's so much material that we cover in this video. Whether you're newer to wholesale, struggling to scale, or been doing it for some time, you're more than likely gonna find something in the next 35 minutes, something that is going to change the way you view your vendor relationships, the products you buy, and definitely some better ways to approach getting better pricing on all of your wholesale inventory. So let's dive right into part 1. So first and foremost, we need to be picking good products for our business. So I made a 14-step checklist. You're welcome to screenshot this, save it. Now we're gonna run through these really quickly, and then I'm gonna show you a product example of an item that I think is a good wholesale product that kind of meets all of these criteria. So number 1 being who is on the buy box. That's the first thing you should look at. Is it an FBM, FBA? Is Amazon on the buy box? Is it a variation listing, right? And don't forget, right under the review section on any product on Amazon, if it does not say at least 50 plus sold in the past month, that means it is selling less than 50 per month. Anything under that, it is not going to display any sales volume metric. Is the listing generic or private bundle? Does the brand linked to the listing say generic, or is it one of those listings that says, 4-pack of coffee creamer plus, or sometimes you'll see a listing that's like a 4-pack, but then it says like with a specific sticker or with a certain spoon for your coffee creamer, right? We want to stay off those listings. Those are what I consider private bundles. Check that the buy box holder is not the brand themselves. We're not really looking to compete directly with the brands we're selling. We always want to dive into Keepa, look for any potential large drop-offs in the number of sellers or indications of IP complaints. Jump into the offer tab on Keepa, and we're going to go through and look at the actual inventory of other prime sellers and kind of what those graphs look like. This one is so often overlooked. You'll buy a product not realizing that one specific seller on that listing is getting 85 or 90% of the buy box rotation in the past 30 or 90 days. Are we competing directly with Amazon? And if they are, is Amazon a dominant seller? I sell a ton of products that Amazon is currently on the listing. However, they're not very aggressive on the buy box. Is the product on a price spike or price decline? These can be indications and things we need to consider. Is it potentially seasonal or holiday related? Should we only be carrying it a certain time of the year? And in general, I typically like to look for listings that have at least 3 to 5 other wholesale sellers. Competition is okay, right? So paying attention to what other sellers are on the listing. If you only see one seller, potentially it could be the brand directly or somebody that has a full exclusive relationship with that brand, or potentially just a private label product. And this one is super important. Before you buy any product from a supplier, you want to check the ASIN in Seller Central. Go through the process of doing like a mock-up approval, right? Where you have to submit an invoice. When you drop the ASIN into Seller Central, just make sure you are not about to buy a product that is actually enrolled in transparency. Unless you are receiving the transparency codes directly from the brand or work directly with the brand, you're not going to be able to sell on that listing. And if everything here checks out, just make sure you're actually buying the quantity that Amazon wants to actually ungate that product. So now that we covered actual good product selection, let me show you an example of pretty much all of these things checking out. So let's kind of go over a basic review of this product here. It's Kikkoman light soy sauce, 64-ounce bottle. Typical grocery product, it is a little bit heavier, about 5 pounds, so something I would intend to ship in on a pallet and not buy boxes. It is ranked 5,000 in grocery. If we come down here, we do see there is a lot of other sellers selling the product. Not always a bad indication. Really good thing, it is selling over 2,000 plus units. First thing we notice, there is a third-party seller on the buy box, which is a good indication, right? It's not Amazon, it's not the brand themselves. Jumping down to the Keepa graph here, I noticed since January, it's got a pretty consistent buy box price. It hovers right around $18.50 to $20. And we notice a pretty organic kind of increase and decrease of the sellers here, which means sellers are coming on the listing, they're selling through their inventory, and they're coming off the listing. Now, as I mentioned, I always like to click on the data tab and look at the buy box statistics. Now, what do we notice here? On the 30-day, this is a very healthy spread of the buy box rotation. If we go to 90, does look like the primary buy box holder is this company here, Shipped Fast. However, it's also rotating through a handful of other sellers. Now, jumping into the offer data here, the first thing I like to do is click Prime. I'm going to look at other Prime sellers only. And I like to use the stock history graphs here to basically zoom in on how other sellers are moving their inventory. We notice there are multiple different sellers. Like this seller here had 175 in stock April 21st, and a week later, they basically sold through everything. This seller here had 93 in stock, and within quite literally like 3 days, sold over 100 units. Another seller with 50 in stock. So this is a high volume listing. It is rotating, and we notice we did confirm just by looking here and looking at the buy box statistics that multiple different sellers are moving hundreds of units per month on this listing. Now, keep in mind, Keepa is not going to track everything. It is not a perfect tool, so always do a test order on your products. Get your own data through Sellerboard, and then project your restocking quantities accordingly. And all the way back in October, all the way up until now, it's had a very, very stable rank, which is 10,000 or better in the grocery category, which I do like to see. And it looks like it kind of planed out right around the $18.50 to $20.50 kind of price range here. But this is a good example of a typical wholesale product that you could order from any type of grocery distributor, or potentially reach out to the brand directly. And that product example there quite literally checks off all of these. It was not seasonal or holiday related. The price is very consistent. It's not on a price spike or price decline. There's a seller getting a little more of the buy box, but nothing, 70, 80, 90%. Amazon is not currently selling on this listing. We looked at the buy box rotation. It is rotating between multiple different sellers. And we also looked at the Keepa offer tab. No indication of IP complaints on this listing. No big drop-offs in the number of sellers. Buy box holder is not the brand. It's a third party. The brand linked to the listing is correct. It's the Kikkoman soy sauce brand. There is one other variation linked to this specific product, but with Amazon giving us the sales data by the ACE and the 2,000 plus sold per month, that helps us out a lot to understand what variations are actually selling well. And yeah, the buy box was primarily third party FBA. Only thing we did not go in and check is the actual ACE and Seller Central, so always make sure there's no transparency requirements. I wouldn't suspect this one has any. But also look at the quantity requirements to ungate the Kikkoman brand. We're going to jump over to number 2 in the video. I just want to quickly touch on how much volume is truly required for the Amazon wholesale business in every single aspect. From the amount of volume you need to actually prep, ship, and send off in terms of product into Amazon, how much volume in terms of cold calls and email outreach, and how much volume in terms of quality conversations. You need to have a lot of good conversations with your sales reps, going over pricing, speaking progressively about your business and where you intend to go in terms of a business relationship with them. I even bet a lot of you watching this right now, you have opened wholesale accounts, maybe just starting out with distributors. I can almost guarantee you're going product by product by product, or you're scanning a spreadsheet and you're saying, Mike, there's no profit. Where's all the profit? I see all these good items, they sell good, and maybe they fit a lot of the criteria that we went through, where you're like, I could be on these listings, but I can never get to the right price. This is actually one of the main conversations I do on coaching sessions with my students. And this kind of leads into becoming the ideal avatar for the companies you do business with. Not only does that apply in the process of opening the wholesale account, like actually getting accepted from that distributor or brand. But on a monetary level, okay, let's say you're working with $30,000 for your business. Your supplier might not even have identified you as a company that could potentially spend $10, $15, $20,000 a month on product. They have no idea. That conversation never existed. So there's two things you absolutely have to do. One is get on the phone with your sales rep, what type of pricing incentives and pricing discounts they could be at if that was the monthly sales volume we're actually buying from that company on a monthly basis. You know, hey, Mr. Supplier, in terms of doing more business with you guys, if we were able to hit $25,000 a month in spend for your accounts that are doing $25,000 a month in, you know, in terms of purchasing, what would that look like if we're able to hit that in terms of where we can be at on pricing? Could you get an 8 or 10 or 15% discount, 20% discount? They will not just come to you and typically say, hey, spend more with us, we'll give you better pricing. You have to communicate, these are the products we're interested in, this is roughly where we could be at on price, and try to identify opportunities that are in that range, 8 to 20% in terms of a discount. Figure out how many units you need and send that over to your sales rep as a mock-up purchase order, along with, remember, we're having a conversation with them over the phone, speaking about these specific opportunities. If you can get near those prices, it'll get us closer to that 20, 25,000 or 10,000 a month in spend that we talked about. Until you clearly communicate the products you're interested in, how many you're looking to carry, how frequently, where you can be out on pricing, and have a progressive conversation with your sales rep talking about your intended monthly spend, it's gonna be incredibly hard for those things to come to fruition, because your supplier is not just gonna like hand you some type of discount like, oh, hey Dave, it's a Tuesday at 3 p.m. I figured I'd give you 15% off, right? These things take work, they take volume in terms of numerous conversations, getting closer to better pricing, a better business relationship with your suppliers. And the last thing I'll touch on in terms of volume is the actual volume in terms of supplier outreach. I challenge everybody to follow the 3 by 30 rule, okay? 3 new supplier cold calls or brand cold calls every single day for 30 days. Now I realize Monday through Friday is really, you know, where you're gonna do those, so bump it up to 4 calls during the weekdays. You'll hit roughly 100 to 120 suppliers or brands that you reached out to in 30 days. Now this is heavily about consistency over just like mass calling, okay? You can do your mass calls if you really want to, but quality conversations a little bit each day of the week is what is actually going to allow you to have more opportunities. And if you really treat this business like a sales position, you know, it's consistency, showing up every single day, making your 3 to 5 phone calls or sending your 3 to 5 emails for brands or companies you have identified as potentially great suppliers or direct brands you can work with for your business. All right, we're gonna quickly jump back to my computer. I'm gonna teach you guys one of the things I teach my students, and that is the hybrid sourcing method. I think you guys will like this one. Okay, number 3 of 6 factors throughout this entire video is sourcing, right? Product sourcing. Now, yes, a lot of my students have already seen this within our course, so I'm gonna go a little quicker. Just kind of like jumping step by step here, but the overall idea, if you give me 30 seconds attention here, the overall idea behind hybrid sourcing is to break out of the box of your traditional like blinders in terms of you see a single product on a spreadsheet of some kind and you look at that product and you plug in the pricing and it's not profitable, and like now you're going on to the next product and you plug in the pricing and it's not okay. There is a much larger picture to product sourcing, and this is how I do it, okay? Whether it's, I use analyzer.tools, okay? If you get a spreadsheet and you wanna run it through a software, highly recommend analyzer.tools. I have a link below for any software that I show you throughout this entire YouTube video here to give you guys a discount upon sign up if you wanna check it out, either a free trial of some kind or a discount on the software. Now, in my course material, I obviously have like an entire 1-hour session of this, but I'm going to try to distill it down to about 5 to 10 minutes here for YouTube. So the hybrid sourcing method, we all have probably opened some wholesale accounts. You receive a spreadsheet and you're going to run it through a spreadsheet scanning tool. I like to use analyzer.tools. All right, step 3, applying basic filters. I like doing ROI, 15 to 150%, sort by volume, right? As you can see, it's a little screenshot, estimated sales per month. I like to sort it top to bottom. I just want to know what is moving the most on Amazon. Um, Greater than $1 profit, that's pretty low. You can jump that up to like $2, $3 if you're paying a prep center, maybe $3.50, $4. And through analyzer.tools, there's some additional expenses that you can include, like your shipment splits or calculating multi-packs. I like to enable this button here. But let's dive into the basics of hybrid sourcing. Okay, what is hybrid sourcing? You scan your spreadsheet. We're going to look at this line item here. We found a Nescaf product that is a 2-pack right here. You can see pack quantity 2. And it was actually properly calculating the profit of $3.95. So instead of just scanning a spreadsheet, right, this is the results from analyzer.tools. Pay attention right here. You see where my arrow is? Nobody focuses on the brands. What brands are populating when you scan the spreadsheet? Everyone's just looking for like a golden nugget random item that connects a UPC to a UPC on Amazon, but that is such a you're missing so much information, so many profitable leads potentially. If you are just scanning a sheet, comparing UPC to UPC and finding like 2 random products to buy and resell on Amazon, okay? We found this lead here, $3.95 profit, 52% ROI, 18.39% gross margin. It was a Nescaf product. If we go into step 4, we're looking for a profitable brand by identifying a profitable lead. Okay, use your spreadsheet scanning softwares as an idea to get a bigger picture, right? The bigger picture here is this supplier carried Little Trees, Jelly Bean, Pan, Heinz, Chapstick, Goya, Nescaf, Carmex, Irish Spring. You guys get the point. Like your supplier is a direct distributor of all these different brands, okay? So we're really trying to source from the pool of brands in all of the different items within those brands than just like random specific products. Right, and this is where we focus on a brand level and move over to Smart Scout. So we found our profitable Nescaf product after scanning a supplier spreadsheet. Now, the screenshots in here are from last year. So there's been updates to Smart Scout. This is why it looks a little dated, but I'm walking you through it this year in 2025. It's the same exact approach I use to this day. All right, through Smart Scout, you're jumping into Smart Scout and going into the brands tab. I have full Smart Scout walkthroughs on my YouTube if you want to pause this video and go watch those and come back. And you're going to get results kind of like this. So now that we found a single item of the Nescaf brand that is potentially profitable from our distributor, I'm like, okay, what is the bigger picture, right? Hybrid sourcing here. We found an item, pull the brand up in Smart Scout and look at all these potential ASINs of the Nescafe brand or Nescaf brand. And here's all the estimated monthly revenue on all of those ASINs. Taking a second to understand what we just did. We used a lead from our scanning software to put us down a rabbit hole of a potentially profitable brand. We noticed there was a Nescaf Ice listing doing $60,000 a month, and Amazon was not even in stock on the listing. However, the initial Nescafe lead on our supplier spreadsheet was actually not the ice product. It was a different listing. So what I did is I cross-referenced the supplier portal to the brand, right? Does my supplier carry the ice variant of Nescafe? And this was the listing here, and sure enough, digging a little deeper, just searching for the brand name from my supplier, I noticed that they actually, this is the whole concept here, guys. They carried the entire line of product. Right, and there's probably even more here. I noticed our spreadsheet scanning tool connected a completely different item. We pulled it up in Smart Scout, noticed there was a listing doing $60,000 a month. Out of sheer curiosity, does our supplier carry that one, which for some reason did not populate. Supplier had the ice version for $6.52 a unit. They had 22 cases in stock. At $6.52 a unit, there was a $3 profit, gross profit, and this item was selling 2,700 times a month. Right, so the distributor had 22 cases in stock, $317 gross profit at a $6.52 unit cost. The product selling 4,000 times a month. So of the 22 cases that were just available from our supplier right now, that's about $225 net profit. Easiest $300 right there. 30% net ROI, 300% net margin, and I would more than likely request that the supplier place a special order or try to bring in maybe 100 cases of the item. Now below is the initial product our spreadsheet scanning software found, which it might be good, but what it told us is our supplier carries a lot of Nescafe products, okay? So this is not even the gem product we ended up finding. Hopefully you guys are connecting the dots. So we source like this because if one SKU of a brand is profitable, there's a high probability a lot of the other SKUs are profitable. Okay, and we need to start asking ourselves the following questions. Are there any other SKUs of this brand from our vendor that we can carry, our distributor, or the brand we buy from? Are there any other alternative colors, flavors, sizes, bundles, multi-packs that we can hop on Amazon, a 2-pack, a 4-pack, a 6-pack of these products? If our supplier has the product line, but not the exact version, can they order it? Maybe a bigger size bottle. Can they order it and bring it in directly from the brand for you? Number 4 is essentially if the pricing is too tight, but you found a potentially profitable lead, basics of negotiation, right? Can we negotiate on products that have high sales volumes and just see how close we can get to our target price? And then kind of the really big picture is, does our supplier carry other coffee brands similar to the one we found that might also work for our business? And I know I'm jumping all around. Believe me, guys, this is like a whole hour in my course of breaking down step by step by step. But for the refined kind of YouTube version here, let's just look at this last statement, okay? Overall, this is not an overly complicated business. You are finding items with profit or profit potential by using a spreadsheet scanning tool, pulling up the brand through Smart Scout and looking at other items on Amazon of the brand, and just kind of assuming that many other items of the brand could also work if you found one that's already profitable from your supplier. Then doing some additional digging. That's really all we're doing here. And just as a basic final takeaway, ask yourself the questions, what are the other sellers on these specific brands selling? Okay, the basics of storefront stocking. If you found a profitable item from your supplier, look at the other sellers on that product. There are probably other wholesale sellers buying from brands, buying from distributors. There's a high probability, and this works especially well in any type of niche, like any foreign food products, any commercial products or office products, right? If you have distribution connections to those distributors, identifying other sellers on the listings you're finding profitable and just looking at, okay, what are they selling? Look at their storefronts, cross-reference back to your supplier catalog. There's a really good chance that other people have already kind of found some gems that you just haven't seen yet. Also, pay attention to repeat storefronts. If you looked at 5 different items from your supplier and you keep seeing the same people on the listings, all right, they're probably at a pricing tier that's working for them, which should give you an indication that you can probably get there with your supplier. You just have to have those conversations like we talked about in part 2 about 10 minutes ago. And kind of the best case scenario, you literally find another seller that you can like 100% see that they're buying from the same distributor, or give you a brand lead, a brand to call and open a wholesale account with. Just storefront stock it, look at their ASINs, and hop into the mix of the products they are selling. Probably one of the easiest ways to increase your monthly sales on Amazon. Now, I did jump over some parts here, but let's go to a Word document so you get the final idea here. So this is really the refined version of hybrid sourcing right here, step by step. You're scanning a spreadsheet, you're finding a profitable product that has connected the UPC to the UPC on Amazon. That is really all spreadsheet scanning tools are doing. But we look at the bigger picture there, and it is the brand that is the lead. Okay, it's going to pull an item that's profitable, but the overall brand is what we focus on. So Smart Scout search the brand. I showed you guys how to do that, and find listings that are third-party seller dominant, right? Amazon's not the only seller. That's why we started this video going over your good product checklist. Number 4 of hybrid sourcing is cross-referencing your supplier's catalog to those same SKUs that we also find on Smart Scout. If they happen to carry the SKUs, there's a couple questions. Is it profitable? If not, can we negotiate? If these are kind of out of the question, can they simply just bring it in for us if they don't even have it on their website or in their catalog? If they have other products from the brand, can they special bring it in for us? Number 5 is paying attention to repeat sellers on the listing. What else are they selling? Storefront stock those sellers and look at the other brands and products that they're currently carrying. There's a high probability that they're buying from the same sources. Hopefully you guys see the value in actually applying this kind of like hybrid sourcing strategy or reverse sourcing strategy, as opposed to scanning your spreadsheet and that is like the final end-all be-all solution. Or instead of just manually going line by line on a catalog, we can not only leverage the power of scanning tools, but quickly go down a rabbit hole of paying attention to what brands could maybe be profitable, paying attention to what sellers are also selling those products, I think if you are just going from getting a supplier spreadsheet to looking to place a purchase order, this is probably the fastest way to put an order together for $5, $10, $15,000. But hybrid sourcing is all about being curious. But you noticed how that entire search in my example of hybrid sourcing there started with just one Nescafe product, which led us to look at all these other ASINs that third-party sellers were carrying. And one of my suppliers happened to actually carry one of those products that we found, which is that Nescafe Ice. And not only that, it was profitable. They didn't have a ton of stock. So my next conversation with that sales rep would be, hey, when can you guys get this back in? Or can you bring me 50 to 100 cases of the product? And it's basically a shortened version of hybrid sourcing. And that's the model I use in terms of sourcing to this day in my business. All right, let's jump into number 4. We're going to do kind of a quick rundown on Sellerboard. I have another kind of Miro presentation to show you. And we're going to quickly go over how to basically simplify what products you continue to sell, what products you should no longer sell, and what products you should definitely focus heavier on. All right, moving right along. Factor number 4. Remember, the entire video is about things people struggle with in wholesale, and here's exactly how you can do it. Now, this is an entire presentation. We don't have time to go through absolutely all of it. This was a part of a group session I did with my group, but we're going to zoom all the way in here and go over common mistakes or common questions in terms of buying product, your first purchase order, collecting that data through Sellerboard, and really kind of how to like scale out from there, essentially. So let's just go over some considerations of purchase order number 1. These are critical questions you need to be asking your supplier. So is there a monthly or weekly minimum order requirement? Is there free shipping offered at X amount, right? Shipping can be extremely expensive going from your supplier to you or your supplier to your prep center. If they say, hey, Mike, if you hit $10,000 on a purchase order, we will cover all of the freight for all of your pallets to wherever you need it to go in the US. That is a massive discount, okay? So always be sure to ask ahead of time so you have a general idea of like, if you just spend a little more, you might actually save a big percent. Now, question 3 is more so something to ask yourself, like a really good indication of a pretty solid distributor in this example is, do they have any of their own trucks for delivery? Right, so this first PO, we want to hit the MOQ. Also, if a supplier has like a $3,000 or a $5,000 minimum order quantity, consider selling the same products that look good, but consider selling on the multi-packs or the case pack listings, like a pack of 12, a pack of 6. Okay, this is going to increase your average sale price, and you won't have to buy as many sellable units, right? If you bought 100 cases and each case was $50, you're spending $5,000 on just 100 cases on Amazon. So you only have to sell 100 units on Amazon, as opposed to, let's say, if it was a single piece and the case pack was 12, you'd be buying 1,200 units, sellable units on Amazon, just to hit $5,000. So look for those bigger case pack listings if you're trying to hit a minimum order quantity a little bit easier. Go wide, not deep. Test 5 to 10 SKUs, shoot for 8. Yes, ROI, not margin. 10% plus net ROI. Okay, this is before pricing negotiations. This is just to break the ice with the supplier. 10% net ROI or higher with all costs included. So it includes your prep, your inbound shipping. Your ROI is going to improve. This is literally just your first order. So this whole part, what we're covering is once you have your accounts you're buying from and you start to put together a purchase order, you're going to start collecting the sales data through Sellerboard or Inventory Lab. The same exact thing would apply. So let's look at like some basic data. I just pulled 11 products here, 10, 12 products. Anything highlighted in green is like really, really good. Like the product ended up very good. Now, fair warning, this is probably a little negotiated. I'm pulling data that's already like established or negotiated with the supplier. So if you guys have Sellerboard, you're familiar with this. You got your margin, ROI of the product, and a lot of your inbound and all of those things are factored in. Now you can see, depending on how profitable, how high of a margin or how low, I have color coded these, and these are each individual line items. These are different ASINs. So let's kind of run through these. I just easily color coded each item, green, yellow, red. This is really how you should be thinking when you're analyzing the data of how much you're actually making on your products. Okay, and this would pertain to purchase order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whenever. This is literally just a good thing to be doing. Anything that's getting on the tighter side, but it is profitable, these yellow ones are what I call phone call SKUs. Okay, this is where if the product is selling well, you could probably buy a little bit more and keep the product in stock for a little longer period. And when you make the jump from, let's say, 240 units, and then you call your supplier and say, hey, if I take 480, can we get 50 cents off a piece, $1 off a piece, right? When you're jumping up in quantities, that's how you start to fix this problem here. It's definitely selling. We're definitely making some profit. It's just too tight, right? But you notice some of these other ones, there's not a whole lot to change. I mean, this is solid, 11%, 31, 17% margin, 45% ROI, and so on, so on, so on. And we do see here, not every product is perfect. This is kind of the red zone where I probably wouldn't even try to negotiate. I'm just going to not sell that product. This is an example of something I more than likely just sold through. I took like $1, $2 loss per unit, sold through like 180 pieces, and we lost $362 on this item. But this is kind of where this is the work a lot of sellers do not pay attention to, and they just continue restocking things based on sales volume as opposed to actual margin. How much are you actually making on your money? Okay, and you have to audit this on a daily, a weekly, a monthly basis. You should really be looking at your seller board every single day and just seeing what's selling, what's doing good, where are the numbers coming in at. So this data can also be an indicator of items you need to look into in comparison to a repricing software. Okay, something like this. Is it actually 3 to 6%, or am I just selling through rapidly and the buy box is actually $1.50 higher? My reprice is just capped $1.50 lower than ideally where it needs to be. So not only making corrections in terms of your min and max on your repricers, but potential for continuing to sell it, but have a conversation about getting better pricing before you restock the next time. While we're here, so based on the performance of these products, you can make a few decisions. You're either going to reorder and increase the quantity, remove the item entirely from future purchase orders. And I think it's always good when you're in the kind of scaling, you're trying to build your catalog phase. Whatever you decide to reorder, restock, or increase on your next purchase order, try to add 2 to 4 new SKUs that you haven't sold before so you can do all of this again. You can collect some data, see how those products are performing, and it just grows and grows and grows. This is really how you create that snowball in your business. So any items that were above a 10% net, I'm talking net ROI, you need to become a master at knowing basically every SKU and every like profitable brand from your supplier that you can sell. And kind of like what I showed you on the hybrid sourcing method, if one item of the brand is profitable, the entire brand might be profitable, or multiple other SKUs of that brand. And I'd say by like purchase order 2, 3, shoot for that 10,000 and spend per month with each supplier. This is what we talked about. Volume in terms of conversation. You need to have conversations laying out how much you're intending to spend on a monthly basis. And this is where you get that 15, 20, 30% ROI net fairly quickly, because you're starting to get those discounts. You're negotiating. It actually makes sense for the supplier because you're spending enough. But just over the years, I found once you're spending, 10, 15, 20K a month, that's usually enough with most companies to get some type of discount, 5, 8, 10, 12, 15. It's going to vary in terms of percentage. Some companies might say, we don't offer any discounts at all. So I guess a lot of this would not apply to that type of company. But for the most part, I've seen 10, 15, 20K or higher in monthly spend. Usually they'll help you out on at least some products that can kind of bump up these numbers. Now, before we jump into number 5 here, remember this is number 4 of 6 in this video. You have to understand that all of this flows together, right? If we want to increase the quantities we're buying and get discounts and negotiate all of those things, they need to know what products you're interested in to spend more money on, okay? And I find the best way to do that is to take, for example, first purchase order with the supplier. Let's say you bought all these products at the exact price point that they're asking, and you spend $7,700, all right? And then you're starting to collect some data, you're making some changes, and in the meantime of these products selling on Amazon and you're collecting your data, you were doing this. Remember, testing other items. So you're researching other products that you're going to test on your next order or items with potential, but you need price help. All we've done here is add probably 10 different items on the bottom here and simply putting it as a purchase order request. Supplier's asking $950. On your spreadsheet, you're putting $825, but you could take 360 pieces for $2,970. And you notice there's just basically about 10 or 12 items here. In this purchase order sent over to your supplier, if they just agreed to all of it, you would be paying them $17,577. So the goal with this, kind of a first purchase order, second PO, and beef it up with a couple offers, is one of the best ways to go about it. Just kind of mention to your sales rep when you send them something like this, these are your target prices. If they can either match them or get close to it, or if we're so far off, just tell me no. You know, your supplier might come back and say all of these work. They might come back and say only 2 of them work, or they might say 5 are fine, 2 are kind of close, we need to talk about it. You know, once you guys come to terms or you find a price that you might take a little less than you really wanted to make on the product, but they're doing the same thing. You guys are trying to deliberately meet in the middle of pricing. They need to make some money, you got to make some money. So all of this goes hand in hand. A lot of people get stuck on a lot of this stuff. They place an order from a supplier right here, and they just kind of sell through it and they're not really sure what the next step is. So this is really how you incorporate auditing some data from Sellerboard. How do we move to purchase order 2? What does purchase order 3 look like? And how do we actually progress farther by making offers on our product? So let's jump into factor number 5 of 6. All right, if you guys remember from the very beginning of the video, I talked about how if you are currently doing RA or OA on Amazon, making that transition can not only feel overwhelming, but it has a high probability where your sales are more than likely going to decline in the process of learning the business of wholesale. And that is why I think it's so important that we take a second to talk about the reality of making this transition. If you truly want to make the wholesale business model on Amazon the primary vehicle of cash flow through your Amazon store, as opposed to retail or online arbitrage, you have to understand that those past business models that you have been doing do not involve any real world relationships or connecting with a sales rep or cold calling a brand, cold calling a company. Especially with online arbitrage, the best way I can explain this, you're more than likely used to doing cashback cards, stacking your coupons, looking for the next clearance deal or promo to stock up on an item that you can make a very high ROI on that. The biggest mental shift when you're getting into wholesale is you're gonna quickly recognize you are the coupon generator at this point. There's no coupon to stack, there's no discounted gift cards, there's nothing like that. You are the sole person that has to properly communicate your business's needs to these suppliers or to the brand, right? You are managing probably higher inventory levels. You're probably buying deeper on a lot of these products, which is something you have to get more comfortable with. And that's why I always advise doing your test buys. But the difference of the arbitrage business models and wholesale is it's really going from a large scale hustle potentially to a full blown business. Like you gotta have your LLC, your EIN number, your wholesale permit. You have to be a legitimate company within your state to open these wholesale accounts with these brands and distributors. Wholesale is the long-term game. If you're looking for a 2 to 5, potentially 2 to 8 or 10-year play, wholesale is the business model to do it with on Amazon, especially with Amazon's rapidly changing policies revolving around higher unit requirements to ungate certain products. Some brands are now just not even accepting applications at all. You have to do everything in your power right now in your Amazon business to make sure you have proper documents from legitimate sources, especially if you are much newer to selling on Amazon. It is getting increasingly more hard to try and source a few items off the shelf at Ross or TJ Maxx or try to chase the next flip, or especially in arbitrage, chasing these big brands like Nike, like Lego. Okay, the big brands are no longer the focus of wholesale. And that brings me into number 6, which is why I truly believe that wholesale is one of the best business models Now, I am not here to convince anybody to run a business to any extent. However, if you are going to do any type of arbitrage, or you are, making the shift into wholesale is going to make your life 10 times easier in the next 2 to 5 years, right? Having authorized invoices, being able to get ungated, having enough quantity at your disposal. You can actually order 100, 200, 300, 500 potentially pieces to get approved in that brand. But the number one biggest thing of why I have stuck with wholesale for so long, wholesale as a business model rewards you for doing what your business actually needs, and that is buying more inventory, right? The more you buy, you're gonna start to get lower prices on your product, right? Building lasting relationships that your business can actually sustain itself upon with the brands and distributors that you buy from, the sales reps that you call and have great conversations with. And especially with this boom of other platforms like TikTok and people launching their own brands and wanting to migrate onto Amazon, there's so much opportunity, literally over 2 million brands, that these brands are hungry for people to handle their Amazon side of the business. They don't want to deal with Amazon. They don't know much about Amazon. They don't know how to fix their Amazon problems. And this is just going to continue over the next many years as more and more brands are emerging on social media through other platforms and other channels and working their way over to Amazon. I really think now more than ever, it is critically important to, at least at a bare minimum, add a wholesale aspect to your business to help you get approved for these brands. And this is just gonna provide stability for you long term. Now, Amazon wholesale is a simple business when you really get the hang of everything, but there are a lot of moving parts between your logistics. If you're not used to shipping pallets, now you're buying larger quantities, you're negotiating with sales reps, you're placing purchase orders, you're watching your restocks. There is a lot more moving parts in this, and this is why a lot of people need help. You know, whether you've been trying wholesale for a while or you're just looking to make that shift and slowly start to get out of retail and online arbitrage and scale up into pallets, truckloads. Now, if you're either struggling with your wholesale business, you're not really sure how to scale, or you just want more hands-on help, maybe you're transitioning from RA and OA, you know, the 1UP FBA wholesale community would be perfect for you. I'm gonna leave a link right down below. Just to give you a general idea, you're working directly with me. You get one-on-one coaching sessions. You get our entire course, access to our Discord community. If you want student results, kind of like the ones I showed you, I'm gonna leave the link directly below this video. It's a completely free discovery call. If you wanna see if getting coaching is a good fit for your business, go ahead, fill out the quick form, and you will be talking directly to me on that call. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for the next one.